Everybody for joining us for today's trustee meeting on June 26th. If we could first start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so first we have public comment. If you'd like to come on up to the podium. You can go ahead and start it, because we normally just pass them down.
Let me just put it down.
Take your time, it's really long.
My name is Mark Intockley. I'm a Precinct 3 delegate in Bloomfield Township. Last week, Supervisor Walsh mentioned that misinformation was being provided by residents regarding public safety and their OPEB funding. So this is where I'm getting the information from. The first 2 pages that I provided to the board are from the Government Accounting Standard Board's requirements. So when I say 12.44% funded prior to removing public safety funds, that can be seen on the second page. And then after those funds were removed, the rest of the top fund had 23.44% and then 27.79% funded. On the first page, what we see is that public safety had 9.61% funded at the end of 2022 and 9.95% funded at the end of 2023. The second set of documents is regarding the quarterly investment reports. So we can go back and look in time and see how much funds were in the account and what happened after the split. I've included the cash flow in and out for the year for both those items per the government standard or government accounting board or a government accounting standard board requirements. And what's interesting is it's a 47% of the cash stayed in the town fund, while only 53% went to public safety. Yet when we look at the liabilities at the end of the year, it's a different story. 26% of the liabilities were in the town fund and 74% were in public safety. I feel that's an unfair and unjust split. We can also do the same type of calculation when we look at unfunded liabilities and the contributions that are being made on an annual basis. That's pretty easy to make as well. It is what it is, but it appears to be unfair and unjust. I hope these are covered in your upcoming presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? If not, we'll close that public comment, and we will bring that back to the board to approve the board minutes of June 12th. We've all had a chance to look them over. Unless there's any changes or suggestions, I'd look for a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Murray, support by Trustee Barnett. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That does pass. Next, we have the approving of the closed session board minutes of June 12th. Again, we've all had a chance to look them over. I'd look for a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Barnett.
Support.
Support by Trustee Faki. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass. Next, we have consider approval of a resolution for authorizing issuance of special assessment bonds for Kirkway Road SAD 425. And we have Darren Kratz, our Director of Assessing.
Good evening. So tonight I am submitting for approval the final step of the Kirkway Road SAD, which is the resolution for authorizing the issuance of the special assessment bonds. Laura Bassett from Dickinson writes here if you have any questions with regard to the bond. I'm also here to answer any general questions if you have any about the Kirkway project. With that, I guess I'll turn it back to you guys.
Do you want to come on up, Laura, and introduce yourself? Yeah.
Laura Bassett with Dickinson Wright, Bond Counsel to the Township. Good evening. Good to see many of you again. So the resolution before you is many of you have seen this type of resolution for a special assessment bond issue before, but just a couple things I will point out. This resolution authorizes the township to issue bonds. It sets parameters for the issuance of bonds. There's a maximum amount of bonds that may be issued for this project of $4,070,000. That amount may be reduced if prepayments for the special assessments come in or for any other reason. It also sets sale parameters, meaning maximum interest rate, maximum purchase price for the bonds when they are issued. So it sets those parameters and then also authorizes very specifically the bonds to be sold by competitive sale. I know the township has done a lot of special assessment bonds through a private placement process where we find an investor and place the bonds with that investor. A lot of those issues have been in the $1 million range. This one is a bit higher. So Benzinski and Company, which is the township's financial advisor, has advised that you go with a competitive sale, which means that a notice of sale is published in the Bond Buyer New York magazine, and then we bring in blind bids the following week after the publication, and the bid with the lowest interest cost to the township is generally chosen. The resolution delegates to the supervisor and to the treasurer the ability to finalize those terms of the bonds very quickly on the sale date when bids come in, but within the parameters that are set by the resolution. So again, we're happy to answer any questions, but that sort of lays out the process for you.
Great. Does anyone have any questions?
Just make a comment. Oh, go ahead.
When's the sale date?
Let me see here. We are looking at, I do have the end of July, so around July 25th is the.
So we have worked with the same team, Benzinski, Laura Bassett and her firm, Jason, and this is really the last step in the SAD process through the board. At this point, today we have 18 out of 127 that have prepaid, and residents have until July 1st. So I expect that we'll have a few more come in, and then we'll go forward and start the process with the underwriting, or with our what do they call it? The Standard & Poor and Standard
Rating agency?
Rating,
thank
yes.
you. And then we'll have a rating agency rate us again and go through that process. And then, so we don't see any surprises here. And this is pretty much just perfunctory in terms of how we've done it in the past.
Anyone else have questions? If not, I'd look for a motion.
Be happy to make the motion. It's what Brian said and you had said. It's something that we have done before, and it's a similar process and similar language. So make the motion.
Motion
Support.
by Trustee Burnett, support by Treasurer Keeps. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That does pass. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks, David.
So next we have consider introduction of an ordinance to amend Chapter 14 Environment to add Article 7 Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, Section 14-147. And we have Corey Almas, Director of Engineering and Environmental.
Good evening, Board. So, again, this is the introduction to the amendment to Chapter 14 and the addition of Article 7, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. So some of the commonly used acronyms that I'll be using tonight, the MS4, which is the Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, MS4. EAGLE is the Michigan Department of Environmental, Great Lakes, and Energy. NPDES is the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. NREPA is the Natural Resource and Environmental Protection Act. And IDEP is the Illicit Discharge Elimination Program. So an illicit discharge is any direct or indirect non-stormwater discharge to a storm drain, waterway, or body of water that is not composed entirely of stormwater. Examples of this are sanitary wastewater, septic tank or septic field effluent, car wash wastewater, motor oil, automotive fluids, laundry wastewater, household or yard chemicals, leaves, grass clippings, yard waste, pet waste, and eroded soils. So here's an example. I just wanted to show you an example of an illicit discharge. I apologize for the grainy photo there, but what you're seeing is some sort of asphalt or bitumen. You can see the oil sheen that is going through the spillway directly into a catch basin just to the opposite side of that. That is being discharged into a storm system that is finding its way out to a waterway, a ditch, a river, something that water goes somewhere. That's an example of an illicit discharge. Here's an example of car wash, sudsy, soapy water that's going directly down into a catch basin. Here's an example of a no-no. Right there is it's an oil collector for changing oil. Goes right into that collection system, and now it's going down into a storm drain. That's a no-no. And here is evidence of an outfall where someone has either washed paint in a or down a catch basin and it's discharging directly into a stream, river. These are all no-nos and prime examples of what an illicit discharge is. So the background for this is EAGLE performed a routine audit, an MS4 audit back in November of 2022 to evaluate the township's compliance with Part 31 of the Water Resources Protection of the NREPA, as well as the compliance with the township's NPDES permit. The required corrective action from that MS4 audit was for the township to certify that the township will adopt an ordinance to prohibit the non-storm water discharges from entering the permittee's MS4. So the purpose of this article is to authorize the township to regulate the non-stormwater discharge to the MS4 to the maximum extent practical as required by the federal and state law in order to provide for the health and safety and general welfare of the citizens of the township. The article also establishes methods for controlling the introduction of pollutants to the township's MS4 in order to comply with the requirements of the NPDES permit process. The objectives of the article to regulate the contribution of pollutants to the MS4 by stormwater discharges by any user, to prohibit the illicit connections and discharges to the MS4, and to establish legal authority to carry out all inspection, surveillance, and monitoring procedures necessary to ensure the compliance with this article. Staff's recommendation is to approve, for the board to approve the introduction of the ordinance amendment to Chapter 14, Environment, Article 7, Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System, Sections 14-147 through Sections 14-164, and set the consideration and possible adoption of the ordinance amendment by the board at its meeting on July 24th, 2023.
I like the water effect.
You like that?
Nice touch.
Thank you.
Very clean water.
It is, yes.
Now, did this come from the audit where other areas got hit with quite a few violations such as this part of the audit that came through to tell us all the things that changed? Was this the only change?
No, there's some other minor housekeeping, and
Okay.
EAGLE does this with other municipalities too. So every municipality has the routine audit where Eagle staff will show up and they'll spend about 8 hours going through all of your facilities, the DPW facility. They'll ask you what your routine practices are for street sweeping and boy, again, this was before I was here, so I'm going off of my experience with my former municipality. So they'll come in and go through all your paperwork, your documentation, and what you're tracking, if you are tracking, documenting, and how you're responding to any found illicit discharges. So making sure that you're performing good housekeeping measures. So through this audit, this was one of the recommendations. The other stuff was just minor stuff that has already been addressed. So this is the remaining piece to that audit.
That's great. Does anyone have any questions for Corey?
So Corey, just to be clear, those items are not legal in the state. We're just now not making them permissible by the township also, correct?
Well, what this article does, it's a good question. What this article does, it really gives the township more teeth, right? When somebody is depositing illicit, whether knowingly or unknowingly, okay, it gives us the authority to investigate, to go onto the property, to remediate, to clean up, and also to either, if it's being done intentionally, to hold them legal responsible, and also to recoup financial costs associated. So if we have to spend money on, or the township has to spend money on staff hours, man hours to remediate, to clean up, to any supplies or equipment used to do that, to perform that work, to investigate, we can recoup those costs based on this ordinance.
Anyone else? And if not, I'd look for a motion. Or sorry, motion to bring it to another board meeting. So accept the introduction and move to
moved.
come back. Motion by Treasurer Keeps.
Support.
Support by Trustee Murray. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? So see you on the 24th.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have considering approval of the fireworks display for Wabeek Country Club with a rescheduled rain date. And we have Clerk Brooke to discuss this.
Okay, so this was added to the schedule this afternoon. The Wabeek Country Club contacted us and advised that they would like to change their rain-out date. They were rained out from this past weekend, which is probably no surprise to anybody who was in the township this past weekend. They had a rain date of July 7th, and they've asked if they can instead move the rain date to this current Wednesday, June 28th. Since that was not in the original board-approved date, they had to come back to the board, and we happen to be meeting today, so we added it to the packet. Pete Vlohas, the fire marshal, has reviewed this, and his memo supporting the changes was added to the packet, including just a date change to the original application as well. So, question is whether we want to approve the new date for fireworks for the Wabeek Country Club for this Wednesday, June 28th.
Unless there's any questions, I'd look for a motion.
Motion to approve the new rain date for Wabeek fireworks.
Motion by Trustee Murray.
Support.
Support by Trustee Faki. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass. And next, we'll consider entering a closed session pursuant to MCL 15.26818 to discuss material exempt from discussion or disclosure by state and federal statutes, specifically an attorney-client privileged written legal opinion. And we'll do a motion by Trustee Shostak.
Support.
Support by Trustee Barnett. And we'll do a roll call vote.
Yes. Trustee Barnett?
Yes.
Trustee Murray?
Yes.
Trustee Faki?
Yes.
Trustee Shostak?
Yes.
Treasurer Keeps?
Yes.
Clerk Brooke is yes. Supervisor Walsh?
Yes, so that does pass. So we will be back. Stay tuned. Roll
We
call
need a
vote.
motion?
Come back in. Do we have a motion?
I don't,
No, we need a motion, yes.
So moved.
so moved.
Motion by Trustee Shostak, support by
Support.
Trustee Barnett, and the roll call
Wait,
to come
Do
back
we need a
in.
roll call to come back in?
I don't know how you have a motion. You can't.
don't.
I asked, he said, that- okay, so just a regular vote.
If we're not in session, how do we make a motion?
Okay.
I know.
I was,
All right.
Okay.
okay, we already have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of putting
Aye.
back into
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that does pass. Based on our discussion, we no longer need agenda item 8. And we'll go on to agenda item 9, approval of payroll and vouchers for June 26. We've all had a chance to look them over. Do we have a motion for those or any changes?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Shostak.
Support.
Support by trustee Barnett. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And then next we have our motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Motion by Clerk Brooke.
Support.
Support by trustee Shostak. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That does pass. Thank
a
you,
wrap.
everybody. Thank you.